Well, I'm looking for information, obviously. So, and you've got to understand with any interview, it's a two-way stretch. So, and both parties have to be really well prepared for it. So, let's take an example of a newsroom journalist rings me up and says they want to come around and do an interview. So, what I've got to make sure of is what am I getting into. So, I'd like to find out from them who else they've interviewed in the story, what's the basic nature of the story. I don't really want to know what they're going to ask me necessarily, but I need to make preparation myself. And then if it suits me, I'll try and control the interview, but only to an extent where I'll choose where to have it. So it's better for me as the talent if I do it in my own office because they're natural surroundings to me. And the journalist might say, especially if it's a news reporter, because they're always rushing and they're on very tight deadlines, and so they'll want to come in and out as quickly as they can. So quite often they'll say, let's do it out the front of the building. That mightn't suit me. So, that's the extent of the interview that I can have control over. So, and I'm surrounded by familiar surroundings. So when they turn up, they'll come in and have a bit of a chit chat as we do at the start, and just go through the general parameters. And before they even come, I would have prepared for it by maybe sitting down with some of my staff or just having a think by myself as to what am I likely to be asked here, and understand. I've got to have an understanding also of how the newsroom operates, because I might only get 10 seconds of what I say on the story that night, because the story will go 70 seconds, maybe 90 seconds. Usually they're very quick in duration because they've got to fit in an overall bulletin. So it's very important that I work out what is the main point that I want to make to get in this story. So knowing what the story is about, expecting what the questions will be about. So it's like it's the classic 10-second grab, because if that's all I'm going to get, I've got to come up with something that's sharp, succinct, and very much to the point.
That's a really good point. And to drill down on that, when you make your point during the longer interview, what is your view about repeating your point?
Oh, there's no problem with that at all. If that's the one point you want to get across, then it's no problem in repeating it 2 or 3 times. Because the journalist will ask you, even for a news interview, maybe 6 questions or so. Even if they might get what they want in the first answer, they'll still keep on just generally chatting with you and just trying to draw more information out of you. And bear in mind, from the other side of the camera, there has to be a performance from the journalist as well. So it's 2 people taking part in this, and as I said at the beginning, it's a two-way stretch. So, and if you're not prepared when you go out to do the interview, often journalists will use the interview as the means of gathering further information for their story, because they might have been given a news release by the news director and saying, this guy, we need him for the story, get out and do him this afternoon. So they'll come out at 2 o'clock, and the time is racing because the bulletin is as early as 5 o'clock these days. So it's important that you sort of get your head around about, well, what do I want out of this guy, and also let the talent know in which direction I'm headed in as well.